Welcome to my 12 Weaves of Christmas. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make a simple willow reindeer using just 5 pieces of willow, a stick, you'll need a drill, some secateurs, a knife and a hammer or a wrapping iron. To start this simple project, I've foraged a piece of hazel that I've cut into about a 10cm stick, which I've used a small saw to saw off. I've then used a knife, and I'm using a wrapping iron, but you can use a hammer just to cut through the 10cm stick. I now have 2 halves of the stick. In one of the halves I'm using a drill to make 4 simple holes. I haven't measured it doesn't need to be completely accurate. Once these are drilled in, I've got 4 pieces of willow that are thick enough to go through the holes, and I selected a 5th rod of willow that's a little bit thinner. I won't be using the whole stick of willow in these 4 uprights. I place them through the holes, setting them so that they're straight, and then with the tip end of the thinner 5th rod of willow, I've woven it through the 4 sticks. I'm going nice and slow so that I can set everything nicely, and making sure when I go around the first corner I've got my finger in between the last 2 rods of willow to make sure that the willow doesn't come together too quickly. I'm going slow and setting everything as I go, and each time I come to the corner and I'm going to weave back on myself, I place my finger in between the holes to make sure that I keep a nice shape. I've gone backwards and forwards in this way a number of times until I've got a nice bank of weaving across my structure. As I'm weaving, the rod that I'm working with is getting progressively thicker, and even though this looks quite thin still, it's putting the whole structure under a lot more strain. So I'm going slow as I go to make sure that I keep setting everything as nicely as possible. At this point I've deliberately left some willow at the end. This will become the tail. I'm now taking the 4th upright, the one next to the tail, and weaving it across the body. This piece is then cut off, but I won't trim it properly until the end of the structure. I'm now going to take the 3rd rod, and this is going to weave the neck and the head of the reindeer. As I'm weaving between the final 2 upright rods, I'm putting my finger in between them each time I come around the corner to make sure that the head structure doesn't become too skinny. You can weave around the neck and the head area as many times as you like. If it accidentally gets too long, you can turn it into a giraffe. Once I'm happy with the shape and the size, I've used my thumbnail to make 2 kinks in the willow, which will become the nose of the reindeer. To finish the weave off, I've simply wrapped it around a couple of times and then woven the tip back through the head of the reindeer. Once it's tight and secure, this can be cut off. I've now cut off the antlers, and I'm very carefully using the secateurs to cut down through the antlers a little bit to make them more defined. At this point, you can take the structure off the wooden stick, and I'm using the remaining tip to weave a row across the bottom, just to make sure that the reindeer is finished off properly. I'm now trimming up the tail and the legs. And there you have your own little reindeer. These are simple to make, they don't use a lot of material. I often use leftovers from baskets. If you don't have willow, you can use dogwood or some other pliable woody material. I hope you enjoyed this video, and there are more videos in the 12 Weaves of Christmas series, so look out for those on my Creative with Nature YouTube channel.